Hello and welcome back. We are back. We are live. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that is the time that we're going to be doing this show for a little while. So, coming in and let's learn about knowing your numbers. So, while I wait for you all to join us, I'm going to be sharing this and posting it in the group. And as you join me, just let me know how you're doing and where you're watching from. All right. Okay, looks like it is working. All right, well, welcome again. This is the Life Artist Show, and I am your host, Mariel Morales, your diabetes and confidence coach. And today we're going to be talking about knowing your numbers. Yes, we all have to know our numbers, or we're not going to be able to take good part in our diabetes management. Because after all, who is the key component of the management of our diabetes? It's not the doctor, it's not the nurse, it's you and it's me. So the more you know about your disease, the more you know about what numbers you should have, the better you can control and manage your disease, and the better you will be at prolonging your life. And that is what I'm here to do as a diabetes educator and dietitian. I am here to help you prolong your life in a healthy way so that you can learn how to live a life that's meaningful and that a life where the diabetes does not define you. So let's get started. If you're here and I have not said hello, I'm not seeing any comments right now. It looks like, hey Marilyn, thank you for joining. All right, so yesterday we talked about what is diabetes, and we talked about the signs and symptoms, how diabetes is diagnosed, and we mentioned some of the numbers in that show. So if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. And we talked about A1C and we talked about fasting glucose, but we didn't talk about glucose after the meals, except for the glucose tolerance test. And it's really important that we all know what numbers we should be having, because if we don't, then we're just going to be navigating this disease blindly. You know, you don't go to a place that you don't know without a map, right? You're following directions, you know exactly where you need to go, how much time you need. But if you are not having a map, you're just going to be wandering around for a while and navigating and leaving it up to luck, and hopefully you'll find your destination. But if you know your numbers, you're not going to be hoping that you find your destination, and your destination should be that you live a very healthy life with minimum complications from high blood sugars. So today we're going to talk about numbers that you should have on your A1C levels, your fasting glucose, your post-meals glucose, so after you eat, and we're also going to talk about high blood pressure numbers and also your cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Because a lot of people get their lab work and the doctor says, oh yeah, it's fine, or yeah, it's high, but you don't even know how high it is, and you want to know where you're starting, right? So that you can make better decisions and make changes either faster or slower depending on where you're at. So let's start with the A1C level. So the A1C is that average of the last 3 months of our blood sugars. So our sugars are going to stick to hemoglobin, you know, like that same thing that they measure for to see if you have anemia. Well, they're going to be measuring that, and they're going to be seeing how much sugar attached to your hemoglobin for the last 3 months. So this is the number that we cannot lie to our doctors about, because the A1C is going to show if you were doing good or not through the last 3 months. So the A1C is going to be an average. So all of your high blood sugars, all of your normal blood sugars, all of your low blood sugars, we average them out, and then we know what percentage you have. And that percentage is going to be corresponding to a glucose level. So we usually hear that we need to have our A1C level below 7%. That means we don't go over 150 most of the time. So most of the days, our sugars in the morning, after meals, and at night, they're not more than 150. If you don't have diabetes, your A1C will be below 5.7. So the closer you are to the 5s, the healthier you are because they're closer to normal. The 7% is what we give you as a safe zone, let's say. So 7%, it's gonna mean that you're pretty well controlled, but you still can do better being less than 7%. If you are in the top 10%, 10, 11, 12% on your A1C, this means you'll be averaging about 240 to 300s in the last 3 months. And that means we're causing a lot of damage to our organs. So we need to bring that A1C level down as quickly as possible. This is why your doctor is going to test you every 3 months. Sometimes they might test you a little bit sooner, but the most accurate number is going to be every 90 days. Then they're going to give you some goals for your sugars for the morning. So when you start your day with nothing to eat, or whenever you start your day, some people work at night and their mornings are the night times. So whenever you start your day fasting blood sugars, we want to be between 80 to 130. Somebody without diabetes is usually less than 100. So the closer to 100, the healthier you will be, and the easier will be for you to start your day, because starting on a tank full of sugar, if your sugars are very high when you start your day, you're going to have a hard time with the foods the rest of the day, because you're adding more sugar to a tank that was already full to begin with. And then we want to test our sugars probably 2 hours after a meal. There's a debate between people say test it as 2 hours after the first bite or 2 hours after you finish. I don't care when you do it, as long as you know that it was 2 hours later at least. Because we're going to take about 2 hours to digest all the food and process it. Hey Jenny, welcome. And so we need to know how much sugar we're getting after we eat. So we need to know how our body tolerates that food that we eat. And if we don't test after the meals, we're never going to know how the food impacts you. So it's a really important test to do whenever possible. I'm just looking here because I don't see any comments and I don't know if people are commenting. So if I didn't say anything back or answer a question, I apologize. I'll probably answer it back after the video because Facebook is not showing me any comments. So after the meals, the American Diabetes Association says that you could be up to 180, but 180 is a very high number. And if I get 180 after meals on a consistent basis, my A1C is going to be 8%. So I personally do not like this goal. I prefer that you are no more than 140. So between 100 to 140 will be a much better goal after the meals. But if you're one of those people that have been having very, very high sugars, 300s, 400s, then 180 is a great goal to start with. After we've reached that goal, we want to start bringing it down a little more. Does that make sense? So before we start to eat, no more than 130. After we eat, no more than 140. 180 if you needed to get that high. Okay? So, hi Christy. Welcome, Christy. Oh, there is a comment. Finally, I see a comment. Thank you so much for sharing. And ladies, if you have been on the show and you have to jump off because you got busy, don't forget to go watch the replays on lifeartist.com. That is lifeartist.com. You can go to the YouTube channel on that link and watch the replays of any of the shows, or share them with a loved one that you think will benefit from this information. And then the other number that we need to know about is the blood pressure. Because heart disease and diabetes are very well connected, they are very good friends. They usually come hand in hand. So we need to know that our blood pressure is staying within control, because the better our blood pressure, the more protection for our kidneys. The higher the blood pressure, the more impact on our kidneys. And if on top of having high blood pressure attacking your kidneys, you also have a lot of sugar, it is a recipe for possible end-stage renal disease and dialysis in the future. So your blood pressure needs to be between 140 to around 140 over 80. That is an acceptable goal for people with diabetes. Now, if you have heart disease, your doctor may want you to be about 130 over 80. So around 130 over 80, 140 over 80 is still a little bit high, but it's an acceptable goal. But the blood pressure goal should really come from your doctor, just like any of the other goals as well. Because, for example, A1C levels too close to 7% on elderlies, like over 80 years old, could potentially bring too much low blood sugars, and that could be dangerous for these populations. So for them, an A1C of 8% is pretty safe. It keeps them safer than having them very close to normal levels. But for somebody young like us, we need A1Cs as closer to normal as possible, so less than 7% without low blood sugars will be perfect. So, these numbers that I'm giving you today are basic recommendations from American Diabetes Association and from the American Association of Endocrinology. They're not numbers I'm making up, these are numbers that have been published in our guidelines for a lot of the physicians and the patients, but your goals are going to be set between you and your physician, right? But if you don't know what your goals should be, then at least this will be a good start. And then the other numbers we need to know is about our fats. So about once a year, usually they're going to do a full blood panel, and they're going to check your cholesterol, your triglycerides, your good cholesterol, and the bad cholesterol. And that means that we need to go fasting as well. If you eat a meal before your cholesterol is tested, you're going to have higher cholesterol because you'll be having fats lingering around from the food that you ate. So we need to make sure that we're going fasting to these lab works if you have diabetes, usually all the time. The A1C, we don't need to test it fasting. They can test it in the office. But fasting glucose and cholesterol levels, we need to do in fasting. So for your cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, they call it, is the LDL. This is the one that's going to cause you to develop more arteries problems. You get clogged up arteries, okay? So if you don't have heart disease, they want you to be less than 100 on your bad cholesterol. But if you do have heart disease, they want you to be even lower. They want you to be less than 70 on the bad cholesterol. So between 70 and 100 is usually a goal for people with diabetes. If you are getting your good cholesterol tested, this one, the numbers are different for men and women. For men, the HDL, or the good cholesterol, needs to be more than 40. And for women, it needs to be more than 50. So next time you get your lab work, come back to this video and review so that you can see what your numbers are in comparison to the goals and the guidelines. And then triglycerides are the last numbers we're going to talk about today. These are cousins to the cholesterol. They're usually composed of free fatty acids, which means the free fat that's lingering around is going to come together and be measured as triglycerides. And we want those to be less than 150. When your sugars are very high, you're going to develop more triglycerides. So you're going to build up this number, and this number is going to get very high. The higher this number, the more possibilities of you developing pancreatitis. And that is a horrible condition to have. It's very painful, and it's very difficult to manage sometimes. You're going to have severe nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. So if our sugars are out of control, our triglycerides will get out of control as well. But as you know, all of these numbers are very manageable. They might need medication for a period of time, or for a long time, or permanently, or you can make a lot of physical activity changes and also eating habits changes. If you increase your fiber, if you're eating more plant-based, fruits and vegetables rather than a lot of processed foods, foods that are not breaded and that are not fried and deep fried, then you're going to have much better numbers. But if you're eating a lot of red meat, a lot of fattening foods, lots of bacon, lots of butter, lots of mayonnaise, lots of sauces, because sometimes we think, oh, it's just a sauce, but the creamy sauces are going to have a ton of fat. Then your numbers on the cholesterol side and triglycerides are going to go up. And then if you're controlling the amount of carbohydrates that you eat, and you're eating a lot more fiber, and you're eating protein with your carbs, then you're going to have pretty good numbers on your glucose levels. So your fastings will be better, and your after meals will be better. So this is what I have for you today. Just short videos. We're going to be doing them at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day as much as possible. Maybe on the weekends we will make some adjustments on the timing, depending if I am going to be out or something like that. But for the most part, it's going to be around this time. So I hope that these gave you some good information on how to control your numbers and what numbers to go for, and that you can discuss with your physician if your goals are to be the ones that we discuss or if they should be different. So as usual, thank you so much for watching. Again, go to lifeartistlink.com to watch the replays and also to check out all of our courses and products and all our social media. And I will be seeing you again tomorrow. Bye now.